Hola clase, ¿cómo están? Muy buenos días o buenas tardes. Not quite sure when you're watching this, but whenever it is, may it be good. Buenas. Okay, so I want to go through a quick review of por versus para. We've already seen this picture, but again, I just want to refresh your memories as we work through this again. If you remember, the caption for this photo was, "I'm here for my son." Then we looked at this picture, which was also, "I'm here for my son." But we knew that the context between the first picture and the second picture were different. So we compared them. The one on the left, "I'm here for my son," meaning that I'm here in order to get or retrieve my son. Whereas on the right, "I am here for my son," meaning I'm here in his place, doing the things that he would have done were he here. So I'm here for him. Both are the exact same sentence in English, but the context changes what the word "for" actually means. In Spanish, they actually use different words in these two different scenarios. And these scenarios help us understand the differences between por on the right and para on the left. If we look at por and para, the best way I know to understand them is actually just a few key words and then these drawings. If you don't have these drawings yet, please, once this slideshow is over, please come back to this slide and write them down. If we look at para on the left, the best way I know of explaining it is if our arrow is the action and then the circle is the object of the action. So in this case, being here, and then the circle is going to be the sun. So my end goal of my action, or what I'm striving towards, is the sun. So the word towards, or in order to, or end goal are ones that help us understand what the word for as para means in Spanish. If we look at por in Spanish, por, that arrow is going through the circle, or the arrow is in place of the circle in front of it trying to take its place, or it's going by the circle. All of these words would be words that we would replace por with in English. And so as we go on to the next slide, I want you to keep visualizing these circles, one with the arrow heading towards it and one with the arrow heading through it. And in each of the instances we'll look at on the next page, these pictures will describe how para or por fits within the context that it does. If we look at this slide, we've got all the uses of para here on the left and all the uses of por on the right. Para is perfect and por is clophidigum. No, actually, they have quite a few errors. Whoever made this slide that I copied made a few errors. You notice the O and the F are switched on the clophidigum side, and then the through, the T and the G actually don't have the right examples underneath them. But I'm going to talk about them anyway and give you good examples. So starting at the top, if we look at purpose for para, and then we look at cause/reason for por, some people might find those synonymous. It's the reason I'm doing it, it's the purpose I'm doing it, it's the same thing. Well, actually it's not, especially grammatically. So if we look at it, because in Spanish you would use para for one of those instances and por for another. The purpose is going to be an end goal. It's a viewpoint or it's a timeline. A purpose is what you're reaching towards. while a cause or a reason is something behind you in the past motivating you forward. So, my purpose for being in this class is to learn Spanish. So, Spanish is my end goal. It's what I want to get good at. Being good at Spanish is my purpose for being here. Where a cause or reason might be, oh, I suck at Spanish. That's why I'm here. Right? That's a past action I've been sucking in my whole life, and that's caused me, or that's the reason why I am now here in this class. They're both saying essentially the same thing, but the way that we phrased it, one would use para, reaching towards being good at Spanish, where por is like, oh, because of this past thing that I sucked, now I'm here. If we look at the E imperfect for para, has the word affect, which is essentially what we were just talking about, still just in a different way. It's still that arrow headed towards the circle. It says, estudio para aprender. I study in order to learn. So me studying is the arrow, it's the action, and it's headed towards the circle, which is learning. So I study in order to learn. What's the end goal? Learning. It's that arrow headed right towards the circle. The R imperfect is the recipient. In the example, it says, el regalo es para ella. So the gift is for her. Same thing. If we're giving a gift as our arrow of action, the end goal or results is in order for her to receive that gift. So she is the end goal, right? So we're going to use para because the whole point of it is to get to her. She's a recipient. F, future point in time. The example says, la tarea es para mañana. The homework is for tomorrow. Like if the arrow of doing the homework, and then of course the end goal or the due date is what we'd say in English is tomorrow. So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see that end goal of tomorrow is when we need to have that homework done. E for employment. I think we've talked about this in most classes. Not every class got to this slide last time, but the review is going to be beneficial for everybody. So it says, trabajo para Microsoft. I work for Microsoft. That means that Microsoft is my boss or the company that I'm working for, or my arrow, my action, my working goes towards the company's end goals, right? If we look on the other side for por, on behalf of or in favor of, it says, yo trabajé por Juan. I work for Juan. In that case, I apologize. In that case, yo trabajé por Juan. I'm working in place of him. We use por because he was like sick and I'm working on behalf of him. Whereas if I trabajo para Juan, that would mean that Juan is my boss and I'm working towards his end goals. On the para side for perfect, C for comparison. Anytime that we are comparing, so for me, this is a really fun class, or for you, it's not a very fun class, or that's a really scary movie for me. Anytime you're doing something like that, the example here is para un niño, for a kid, he is very tall. So that para, anytime you're doing a comparison, you're going to use para. T for towards. Oh, that's already one of the keywords we've been talking about. It says voy para el parque. I am going for the park, meaning that the park is the end destination or goal of going, right? I am going in order to get to the end goal of the park, or I'm headed towards the park. If you look on the other side, it's actually in the gratitude section, but they've got the wrong example for it, but that's the one I want to compare it to. The example is voy por el parque. In that case, it's not that the park is the end goal, it's the arrow that's going through the circle, so I'm going through the park. And that's why they used por rather than para. You just have to think of the drawings. Is the park the end, the arrow going towards the park? No, in this case, the arrow is going through the park. If we go back to the top of por, cause or reason, we talked about that. L, length of time. Yo estudié por 2 horas. Oh, preterite. I studied for 2 hours. If we think about that arrow going through the circle, the action is studying, and the circle is 2 hours. All of the studying that we did were within or throughout those 2 hours, just how that arrow is within the circle. If we look at frequency, the frequency is very, very similar to the length of time, right? So the example, it says, Yo voy al cine 2 veces por semana. I go to the movie theater 2 times per week. Por and per are actually cognates. So if you think about miles per hour, how many miles took place within that hour or throughout that hour? If you think about the arrow going through the circle is an hour, and then the arrow would be how many hours fit within that circle. So going to the movie theater 2 times per week, the action or the arrow is going to the movie theater, and then of course the circle is 1 week, and then how many times something happens within that circle per week is going to be used with por. On behalf of or in favor of, we have talked about yo trabajé, I worked for Juan. So I worked in place of him. I worked on his behalf. I, in exchange for, is actually the exact same thing as in place of, right? It says, ella pagó, she paid, past tense preterite, $5 por el libro. She paid $5 for the book. But what is paying money? It's an exchange, it's trading, it's going one thing in place of the other. So she paid $5 for the book, aka the $5 took the place of the book for the owner of the book that was selling it, and now the book took the place of the $5 for me. They're just taking the place of. It's the exact same as what we're talking about with Juan. Now it's just with money and a book instead. So they're going to use por. The arrow is in front of the circle. It's taking its place. Through, along, /by, really easy. Again, the example down below is down on their slide, but the circle with the arrow going through it, through, there we go. Or if you look at it at 3-dimensional, the arrow isn't going through the circle, it's just going by the circle or along the circle. The drawing really makes easy sense if we're looking at through, along, or by. Gratitude, again, doesn't have a good example below it, but anytime you're expressing thanks for something, gracias por el regalo, thanks for the gift, or gracias por escuchar, thanks for listening. Again, this is kind of just an exchange or in behalf of. I'm giving you thanks in place of this kindness you've shown me, or in place of this gift that you've given me. We've exchanged something. You now have thanks and graces in place of the gift that you have now given to me. And I now have a gift in place of the graces or the thanks that I have now given you. Gracias por. Last one, M, means of doing something. Voy al cine por bus. I go to the movie theater by bus. And me llamó por teléfono. In both of these cases, the action, this one going to the movie theater by bus, the whole going to the movie theater happened within the bus circle, right? Or the entire telephone call happened within, or happened through, or by the telephone. And that's how we would use por in this scenario. Finally, we're going to go ahead and switch over to our last slide. Our activity here is going to be, just look at it. There's a carrot in front of him and there is a pitchfork behind him. Which one seems more por and which one seems more para, and why? Think about it. Hope this wasn't too difficult for you. Por is obviously going to be a cause or motive behind doing something, while para is what you're reaching towards, or an end goal, right? So motive or cause, and goal or destination. And that, folks, is por versus para. I hope this has been helpful to you in preparing you to be able to do your own work and deciding between these two things. Good luck. Thanks.